Okay, Loudepot back here, and we're going to start going over some oil and oil burner stuff. And oil tank, by the way, also. But it's a boatload of information, so there'll be a lot of classes on it. I can't do one long 3-hour class because there's just no way it'll fit in one video. So anyway, we're going to start with the oil tank, and that'll be the beginning of it. The oil tank has two ways of hooking up to the oil burner. And when I talk about oil burner, I'm specifically talking about the oil pump that's on the burner. As you can see, there's an inlet and a bypass outlet. And what I'm talking about is the plumber will run a copper line from the bottom of the oil tank to the inlet. That's not the best way to do it, but that's how they do it. So there are other ways of doing it where you could run a copper line to the inlet and then the pump has an outlet or a bypass where you could go back into the top of the tank. That's the best way to do it. And I kind of drew it a little wrong here, but I'll normally when they do run copper, this is the oil tank. They'll put a tap on the top with two holes. It's called a duplex bushing. One line will go to one side of the pump, the outlet. The other line will feed the pump, the inlet. Now, it's important to do it this way because the suction line where the pump goes to where the oil line goes to the burner goes down into the oil tank, but the plumber can then hit the bottom and raise it 6 inches. Remember, all the dirt and sludge stays on the bottom of the oil tank. So by raising the suction pipe up 6 inches, you're always in nice clean oil. That's the ultimate way to do an oil burner. Into the inlet of the pump, back out, and returning. Now, the return line only has to stick into the oil tank 2 or 3 inches. The oil just goes back in there. That's the night. If you do it that way, you'll never have problems with air. You'll probably won't have problems with sludge, unless the sludge is so high in the tank. And you can also raise the oil line, the suction line, even higher. You get to the point where you're not using your oil at one point, though. That's the ultimate way to run the oil line. Unfortunately, and by the way, that's the way they do it if the oil tank is buried underground, because it makes a lot less strain on the pump to pull the oil and return it. Most plumbers will give you a valve off the bottom of the oil tank, then a filter, hopefully, then right to the inlet, and that's it, you're done. This always causes problems because you're sucking the sludge right off the very bottom of the tank, which is a problem always. The second problem is that you're always going to have problems with air, especially if you run out of oil. As soon as you run out, you'll be hitting the prime pump and trying to get the air out to get air. There's a new invention called a Tiger Loop where you don't have to worry about that anymore. And I'm going to explain to you how it works. This isn't a new invention, but it's an invention. A lot of people don't know about it. This is a Tiger Loop, and this is what it looks like. And simply what it does is it converts the one pipe system, the no good way, into a 2-pipe system, the good way, without actually having to run a return line all the way back to the oil tank again. It's all done right at the burner. And here's how it's done. You'll purchase a Tiger Loop from Home Depot or any plumbing supply, and it comes exactly with this, with a shut-off valve. And by the way, these shut-off valves are safety valves. These have lead on them. There's lead in there, and the lead is threaded. If there's ever a fire, the lead simply melts, and this handle springs off and goes flying. And when the handle is off this valve, it's called a firematic. When the handle is off the valve is off. It's spring-loaded. That's lead in there and it melts. So anytime there's an issue with a fire, these are designed to stop feeding the oil to the fire. Good safety device. Anyway, you would simply put the feed valve on the bottom of this tiger loop, and here's how it would be done. The tiger loop has 2 ports and a feed in. And I'll draw it for you to make it easier. This is normally how the tank would be. It would be the feed in. You would take the oil feed out of the pump, install the tiger loop. You can hang it anywhere near the boiler, on a wall, on the burner, anywhere. And you would send the feed into the bottom of the tiger loop. That's the feed in. Once you install the feed into the tiger loop, there is an outlet on the tiger loop. There's 2 arrows. Boy, it may be hard to see. I hope you can see this. There's 2 outlets. And on the one, there's an arrow out. On the other, there's an arrow in. Well, you can see that. You see the arrow out? Well, the arrow out, remember, don't forget, this is very, very simple. You're going to feed the oil in to the bottom of the tiger loop. The arrow out will go back to the in that you just removed the copper line from, and the only third line you're going to add is from the out on the pump back to the tiger loop's in, where the arrow is in. So that's it. From the tank to the tiger loop, from the tiger loop to the in on the pump, and from the out of the pump back to the tiger loop's arrow in. And it's that simple. Once you do that, and by the way, this valve will be there, so this will kind of look like this. Once you do that, you have eliminated all your air problems. You can run out of oil. All you're going to do is come over to the burner. Usually it's going to be a Beckett burner like this with a control on it. Hit the reset button, and you're done. No more bleeding ever. If there happens to be a tiny air leak in the oil line where your burner keeps shutting off, well, the tiger loop takes care of that too. It's constantly bleeding as it's running, as the burner's running. If your burner doesn't start on the first set, you wait a few minutes, you hit the reset button again, eventually it'll start. Don't forget, to add this tiger loop in, you have to do one more simple thing to the bottom of this pump. On the outlet of every pump, and I'm going to show it to you. Hope I'm strong enough to hold this up. There is an arrow that says bypass. And there is a bolt underneath there. Right there. The bypass, simply the bolt comes out, and there is an Allen key that comes in. You can buy this. This is nothing more than a little threaded plug on an Allen key. That's all it is. It's just a simple little threaded plug. It takes an Allen key. You insert it on the Allen key. Let me see, I'll do it this way for you. And you balance it on that Allen key. Once you remove the bolt out of the bottom of the pump that says outlet or bypass, you're going to have a thread, an open threaded hole. Well, that Allen key, there is a little female hole waiting to accept this plug, and you actually insert this Allen key and plug way up into that hole where you took the bolt out of and screw it in, and you tighten it up into the bottom of the pump. You'll be tightening it up into the bottom of this pump. way up under here and way up in there, where it says bypass. Once you do that, you have opened up the bypass on the pump, converting the pump into a two-pipe system. So the bypass plug has to go in, and then you can add this tiger loop. And it's that simple. All your air problems will be gone from that moment on and forever. Every time you run out of oil, you'll simply just hit the reset button again. There'll be no more opening that bleeder with a coffee can under there making a mess all over the place. The tiger loop does it. And it's that simple. The only other way is, if you want to avoid the tiger loop, is to actually put that bypass plug in the pump, and you could actually go to a plumbing supply and buy a duplex bushing and install it into the top of your oil tank, plug the hole in the bottom, eliminate the feed off the bottom, and then you would simply just go into your in and return out of your return back into the oil tank. And of course, make sure you insert the line all the way down, leaving it 6 inches off the bottom of the tank. That's the other way of doing it, if you can do that. If not, you can always go by the tiger loop system and do it right there at the burner without returning the second line all the way to the pump. It'll just return to the tiger loop.